Hi everyone. Now this is a special flipped collab which is only for students who are taking part in the specialization. Now I need to make it really clear. Everybody needs to watch the first flipped collab. I'm not going to be going over the same content that I did in that presentation. This is purely for specialization students who are doing that little bit extra in their findings section. We're going to cover what the extra bits are that you need to include. So you still need to watch the first Flip Collab where it talks about what kind of content you need to have, because essentially the two assignments are the same, except that within the finding section you're asked to go further, provide more further research, more detail, a more thorough discussion, hence why you've got the extra word count in that section. But other than that, the actual content itself, the structure, everything else is the same. So please watch that first. This is an additional video talking about what you need to do to provide that extra depth of discussion. So hopefully you've already watched that one. And if not, press pause, go back and watch that one first and then come back to this one. So what I'm going to go over for you now is essentially the rubric. Because as you'll notice, with the assessment details, there is no difference. The assessment details are exactly the same, except I did make a little boo-boo in my last presentation where I said that you needed 10 references for the normal assessment. I actually got that wrong. I was looking at the wrong sheet of paper. The normal assessment should have 7 references, and you guys, as a part of specialization, need 10. One other thing that I did want to say is that this video is also not about whether you qualify for the specialization, whether you should be doing the specialization. If you're wondering that, then you need to go and watch Sam, our lead UC. She has made a video all about what specialization is, and if you qualify, if you need to do it, if you want to opt in, if you don't have to, all of those questions are in a specialization thread, which is about specialization in general. So today we're talking about the assignment. This part of the rubric is only in that finding section where it talks about depth of understanding. These are the different criteria that you have, which is different from the normal assessment. So all of the, again, all the rubric is the same with these extra features. So I've just cut and pasted it here for you to see. So as you can see, this is the pass section here, and it says expert content and pedagogical content knowledge is demonstrated for a pass. As you work your way up through the grades, you'll notice that it really talks about, I think the key with this part of the rubric is linking the pedagogical practice to theory and to practice. So it's getting all of those things and linking them together and doing that kind of seamlessly. So it says here, detailed expert content and pedagogical knowledge, content knowledge is demonstrated effectively linking theory with practice. If we have a look over here to the HD, it talks about the fact that you're not only linking theory to practice, but it's evident in the way you engage with the curriculum, moving beyond simply describing it to position it in relation to your own understanding, expectations in terms of your future practice and relevant contemporary literature. So it's really connecting. When we talk about theory, we talk about academic theory. Then we're connecting it to pedagogy in terms of, I made this little bubble over here because when people say what's pedagogy, we're talking in this context, we're talking about the how. So we've got the academic theory, which is the basis of everything we do. All of our practices and all of our curriculum and everything that we go to is all based on educational theory. So you think about the theory as sort of the very bottom layer of why we do what we do and what was the thought behind it. So think of the theory as sort of the bottom layer, but then on top of that, so you've used theory, So if I say, for example, we understand how kids read, there's a lot of academic theory about how kids learn to read, what's happening in their brain when they read. Oral language, how did that develop? So there's all these theories, all academic theory about how, say, for example, kids learn to read. And then because we know how kids read, because we've got the scientific and academic evidence, we then base our curriculum on that. So now that we know how kids learn to read, what do they need to be able to do? What do they need to be able to know? What do teachers need to teach them? So that's the what, that's the curriculum, which is based on top of that. Then you've got the pedagogy, which is the how. It's the teaching practices we use. So that's the real practice, that's the practical. So we're linking the theory, the academic theory and the scientific theory of where this curriculum and pedagogy came from, and then we're sort of building and making connections between all three. We'll talk about how you do that in a little bit more detail after I've talked about the other element of the rubric. So really keep that to the forefront of your mind. Excuse that. Somebody's doing a burnout in front of my house. Now our other part of the rubric. So there's only two parts of the rubric that are different. So this is sort of leading on from the other one that we just talked about, linking theory and practice. So it talks about highly effective classroom teaching practices are demonstrated. So this is talking a little bit more detail about the practice. So when it says to you in that other element of the rubric, the one above, link it to practice, this one gives you a little bit more of a breakdown of what that means and what we're looking for exactly when we come to mark your assessment. So we've got some classroom practices were just demonstrated at a pass level, so they're just sort of mentioned. Many highly effective classroom practices are demonstrated, so you can see there that it's talking about, we don't just want a one-off comment where you've linked something to practice. It's talking about really weaving it through the discussion and using it as a support to show, well, we know things work because this is how it works in the classroom. We've got many highly effective classroom teaching practices, including critical analysis of these has been demonstrated. Up to the high distinction level, where you've got innovative, insightful, and highly effective classroom teaching practices, include a critical analysis of these demonstrated throughout the assessment. So obviously that's what we're all aiming for. Not only are we linking our theory, curriculum, pedagogy, teaching approaches, all of those things, probably just synonyms for the same thing really, and we're linking it to highly effective classroom teaching practices, which is the how, which is the pedagogy, which includes a critical analysis of these practices demonstrated. In the normal assignment, we need to show critical thought anyway. We should already, everybody should be showing a critical analysis. But what we will do differently as a part of specialisation is really go beyond the unit. So what you do need to be able to show us is that when you've thought about how you're going to link the theory and the pedagogy and the curriculum, that you have gone beyond the unit and you've done some further research into the concept of literacy or into the impact, so that we see further depth of discussion beyond what's already been provided for you. Okay, so I've tried to make a slide that would demonstrate what we mean by trying to link all of these things together. Now, this is a bit tricky for me just to talk about in a quick 15-minute video. So if you get to the end of this and you're still wondering, but Rach, I don't know where to put it, I don't know what to do, we will be able to talk you through it in a little bit more depth in our interactive collab. So please don't worry. This was more just this is what's different about it, and this is what we need to include, and get your questions ready for us so that when you come to the interactive collab, you can get the help that you need. But I tried to give you some examples of what I meant by linking these things together, that first element of the rubric. So like I said before, the academic theory and the research is the basis of everything that we do. And pedagogy and curriculum grow from what the research tells us. So within our assessment, where can academic theory and research live? Well, we should be seeing it in when you talk about your concept of literacy. So remember how when I spoke in that first flipped collab, you were talking about modern practice and multiliteracies and what the concept of what it means to be literate in today's society means. That all should be based on academic theory beyond the unit readings. When you talk about the impact of effective literacy teaching, that is going to be highly based in academic research and theory, because it's talking about the fact that it comes down to only certain elements really impact on a child's ability to succeed in literacy, and a lot of it comes down to teaching. Hence why it connects back to pedagogy, because you have to have effective teachers implementing effective pedagogy in order to have that student learning growth. We can see already the connection there. Effective assessment practices. So when you're sharing your assessment, you're going to talk about, if you're talking about a specific assessment, say like F&Ps, then you're going to base that on, when you have criticisms of that particular assessment, that's going to be based in academic theory. So for example, if you don't believe that, say, I'm just going to share one off the top of my head that I was reading the other day. As a part of my master's degree, we were having a look at assessment, oddly enough, and we were talking about the fact that some people believe F&Ps to be ineffective because some of the queuing systems, some of the science behind how kids learn to read is highly based in phonics, and they're trying to move away from stretchy snake and, get your mouth ready and look at the picture and try and give kids really those phonics strategies as opposed to guessing or looking at images. So I read a very interesting article which I'm happy to share with people about, no more guessing techniques. So that would be an example of me looking beyond the unit, looking beyond the readings to find out interesting information about these assessment and connecting it to practice, connecting it to how it works for kids in the classroom and whether it is actually effective and whether it actually helps teachers plan and to differentiate their practice. In your recommendations section, you can also connect to academic theory and research as well, because you're making recommendations into the future of what makes effective literacy assessment. Like I said, it's a very broad scope we've got here, so we will discuss it further in our interactive collab. Curriculum, obviously we've got ACARA, so we've got the Australian curriculum. You can look at your state curriculum, but also beyond that, it does push for policy as well. So make sure you have a look at things like, department websites. So Victorian Department of Ed have heaps of stuff. If you have a look at the literacy toolbox, I'm happy to share a link to that. Lots of great stuff, because you want to know what the department's stance is on a lot of these issues. So if certain things are coming up in your research, you're looking into your assessment and, certain trends are coming up, you might want to look what the department policy is on that. If you're talking about inclusion, there will be a department policy about inclusion. So look for, not just look absolutely curriculum sites, that's a must, but also department sites, policy sites, government sites. That's really going to tie in all of these things together, because obviously that's all based on, what government pushes is going to be based in academic theory as well, because there will be new research into how kids learn to read, what's the best way to teach writing. So pedagogy stems from that. You're supposed to be making connections to pedagogy, so we want to see you, let's not dance around it. Let's try and be really explicit and talk about particular teaching strategies that work for kids, and perhaps connect well to the assessment choices that you've chosen. So for example, if your FMP shows you that certain kids need to work on a particular skill, you could make some connections to, say, guided reading. You're going to talk about modeling, all of those sorts of things here. I will think of some really specific examples of how I would connect these, because I've just given you very general things here, but I will think of some specific examples of, say, an assessment choice that I would choose and how I would relate to the theory, the curriculum, and the pedagogy. So I will give you some more examples in the interactive collab. So this is the part of the findings. We've probably already covered it a little bit. That is different. So, sorry, not different, because they're all the same. It follows the exact same structure. We just have more words. So you're going to talk about the impact, the importance of good teaching practices. So when you're talking about the concept of literacy, you can link to teaching practices there and how important it is. Give examples. When you're talking about the implications of your assessment, you're going to link to effective teaching and learning. So what underpin the academic theory that underpins what good assessment should be. Because if you are critiquing your assessments and you're telling us what's wrong with them, that can't just be an opinion of yours. That needs to be based in academic theory. You've got the factors that contribute to the use of your assessments. So can assessment be practical to the real goings on in the classroom? So this is me trying to link to pedagogy and actual teaching practice. So when you're thinking about factors that sometimes influence effective assessment, think really about the day-to-day, real life, every day going on in the classroom. So thanks so much for listening. I know it's probably a lot to get your head around in this short video, but as I mentioned, we will be offering more support in the interactive collab for those people who are doing specialisation. If you're not sure whether you should be doing it, remember to check out Sam's video. And I'll see you next week in the interactive collab. Thanks, guys.